He's the son of an FBI man, a PwC veteran who spent more than 4 decades with the firm. Joining us today for a special chat is Dennis Nally, Chairman, PwC International.
Great to be with you.
Dennis, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to you now.
Good to be with you.
Let's kickstart things by talking about the new government that has taken control at the center in Delhi. How confident are you of the Modi regime reviving the investment climate and putting India back on the growth track? Do you think the government will walk the talk?
Well, look, I think it's obviously early days, but thus far it's been encouraging. You look at some of the statements that have been made, very much a pro-business kind of a conversation so far, reform-oriented. The international community has reacted very favorably to what they're hearing, and I think it's going to be very exciting to see exactly how the reforms and the changes start to get rolled out here. But I think net, it's very good so far, and it's great for the country.
Now, the budget from the Modi government is perhaps the most eagerly awaited policy statement from any Indian government in recent times. There's a lot of hope riding on it. You are the global head of a major global audit and accountancy firm. You're always in touch with overseas investors. What, in your opinion, do you think is top on their priority list as far as the Indian budget is concerned? Well,
you know, I think it's more about giving some strong signals about the direction of travel that this government is going to pursue. So not looking for big things, but looking for clear messages, clear signals that they're very serious about reform. Given an indication that maybe some of the hopes that are out there will start to come to fruition through the budget cycle, which is what they can control in the short term. So, you know, how they think about reforms around regulation, taxes, for example, signals that they'll be sending to the business community, not only here in India, very important, but the international community as well. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to put into action some of the ideas that they put forth during the campaign process.
Could you stick your neck out and perhaps elaborate on some of the reforms, particularly which you hope that the Indian government will put in place? You must be receiving lots of feedback from some of your global clients. Could you throw some light over there?
Well, you know, I think one thing that, whether it's our clients or the investors, what they want to see is stability. They want to see consistent rules being applied you know, in a straightforward way. So business really wants to see some of that happen. And quite frankly, when India, you look at some of the issues that the country has faced in the past, you haven't seen that stability. And therefore, that's raised a lot of questions in terms of the competitiveness of India as a country vis-a-vis other opportunities that exist elsewhere around the world for investors. So I think, you know, as the next several months unfold here, many are going to be looking for just those small signals that this is going to be about stability, about rule of law, about consistency, that there's going to be a new day here in terms of how to do business in India. A lot of expectations, but huge opportunities here for this country to get this right.
So net, you're saying that baby steps for the time being should suffice before the big bang reforms finally kick in?
Oh, I think the big reforms are going to take time. You know, you know how long it takes to really get at some of the big issues and challenges. This country didn't get to where it is today overnight, so it's going to take some time to get at those issues and build consensus and build the support for the kinds of major reforms that I think many would like to see for this country. But that doesn't mean that you can't make good, steady, slow progress in terms of just dealing with some of the basic kinds of issues that I think could be reassuring to the international community.
When it comes to Indian jurisdiction, perhaps what sticks out like a sore thumb is the controversial retrospective amendments to tax laws that were introduced in the budget. Do you think this is the right time for the Modi government to perhaps scrap this law once and for all? Because this is turning out to be something which has given India a poor name, especially when it comes to investor sentiment.
Investors have a lot of choices in front of them. And one of them is how competitive is a country's rules, regulations, laws vis-a-vis other opportunities that are out there. This particular law, as you know, is not a popular law. It causes a lot of uncertainty. What business people like, as I said earlier, is clarity. They like certainty. They're not so much concerned about the law itself. They just want to know that it's going to be consistently applied so that they know how to plan, they know how to make choices, they know how to think about alternatives. So this is a big issue, and hopefully, we'll see the kind of progress that I think the government has at least talked about on this point.
Auditors globally have unfortunately been embroiled in several issues which perhaps the audit fraternity is not really impressed with. They've been embroiled in a lot of controversies, a lot of frauds have in fact unfortunately surfaced. Do you perhaps think that the credibility of the audit profession has taken a hit in recent times? And I'm asking you this because of the number of cases that have sprung up.
Look, I think whenever our profession runs into a situation like you described, most definitely it creates that blemish, on all of the things that we do. There's no question about that. In the broader sense, the financial crisis, certainly has raised all kinds of questions around trust with business, trust with governments, trust with our profession, and I think it's incumbent upon us to step back, reflect on that, and really think about what exactly we should be doing as a way to restore that trust, as we think about the future.
Has the credibility quotient taken a hit? Do you feel so on the ground?
What investors are saying, what the public are saying, is they want more from this profession. They want us to do more. They want us to hold ourselves to a high level of standard in terms of our integrity, our objectivity, our independence. They certainly want to have more transparency. They want much more relevance of reporting coming from not only companies themselves, but also the firms themselves in terms of what an audit is, what an audit isn't. Can we share some of the more specifics coming out of the audit process with that investor community so they have a better appreciation for exactly what we are doing? I think it's incumbent upon all of us to move in that direction.
All right, Dennis. We'll move into a short break, and on the other side, we'll continue to ask Dennis more questions about the auditing profession. Stay tuned to ET Now. Welcome back to ET Now. We're in conversation with Dennis Nally, Chairman, PwC International. Dennis, in the previous segment, you spoke about auditor independence. Let's take the case of India. The big four firms like PwC, KPMG, Ernst & Young, they are pretty well entrenched as far as India is concerned in terms of business, operations and revenues. But there are several smaller boutique firms in India, and these boutique firms have perhaps just one client who they keep servicing year after year after year. And in certain exceptional cases, a bulk or perhaps a majority of their revenues come from that one client. How does this reflect on auditor independence, and do you think this is an unhealthy trend?
Well, I think there's two issues to really think about here. One is, at least the way I think about auditor independence, you have the challenge of being independent according to the rules and the regulations. And we all, as professionals, certainly need to adhere to those professional standards. That's one aspect of independence. The other aspect of independence is whether you're, from an independent standpoint, from an appearance standpoint, are you independent? And that's really the issue that I think you're really getting at. And I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that is in fact the case. Now, with the reforms that have been put in place here in India, mandatory firm rotation, for example, that's going to certainly begin to take care of some of those perception issues around auditor independence. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility as professionals to make sure that we are independent, both from a factual standpoint as well as from an appearance standpoint. What we have is our integrity, our objectivity. The markets rely on that, to provide that independent point of view, that independent perspective. And without question, this is something that, as professionals, we all understand and take that responsibility very, very seriously.
All right. Now, I'm sure, Dennis, the Satyam scam must have been a huge learning experience for PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's, of course, evolved as a firm. Tell us about some of the major takeaways from that troubled episode.
Well, look, we always have to take a situation like Satyam and really learn from it. And I think we've done that at PwC. The last 5 years have been pretty challenging, as you can imagine, and we have learned. We have learned about the need to make sure that all of our people are appropriately trained, they're educated, that they have the right backgrounds, that they have the right skills, competencies, that they understand the industry well, business risks, processes, etc. And we've made substantive investments to make sure that we are doing all of those things. And so it's been a difficult road. It's been a tremendous learning experience, and I think that's what's really critical, which is whenever you're faced with a situation like that, what can you learn from it? How can you do things better? And that's exactly the approach that we've taken here at PwC to learn from that. We never want to return to those days.
Reassuring thoughts over there. But tell me, Dennis, do you think PwC India is totally cleansed of perhaps the troubled days as far as the Satyam scam is concerned? And you keep visiting India very often. Do you always get asked questions like this?
Oh, I always get asked questions like that. You can never not anticipate that will be on someone's mind. Satyam was a big issue here for India. We all know that. But you can't ignore the past. It is, as I say, here. The question is, what have you done about it? Where are you going into the future? I do visit India a lot, as you say. I'm here for a very important reason, because we actually believe that this country, has got incredible potential.
We recently got indication that a local court in Hyderabad is likely to indicate the date of pronouncing the verdict in the Satyam scam. It's been going on for several years right now. It's been more than 5 years since the scam first unfolded. There's been a lot of investigation. There's been a lot of witnesses who have been cross-examined. How confident are you of a favorable verdict? I know I'm pushing my luck over here. How confident are you of a favorable verdict from the Indian judiciary?
Well, I'm certainly not going to make that prediction today. We all know the courts have got to do their jobs. They have a responsibility to do just that. We're very anxious to see this whole thing get behind us, resolved, and hopefully that'll be the case here over the next several months.
There have been lots of cases in which auditors' names have sprung up, quite unfortunately so, perhaps from a profession point of view. But do you think auditors are not learning from their mistakes?
Well, I think they are. It's interesting. I'm fond of saying that we never talk about all the good audits that get done. And there are thousands of those that happen every single year. Unfortunately, when you do have a difficult situation, it just puts the taint on everything that goes on here. And I think we've got to keep some of that in context. There will always be bad actors. Always be bad actors. History would suggest that will be the case. What we need to do as a profession is to minimize that. We don't provide 100% assurance. That's not the job. If that were to be the case, certainly that would raise all kinds of issues with regard to cost. Where's the risk reward? As I mentioned, a lot of great audits, good audits get done every single year. So trying to strike that right balance, I think, is really, really critical.
And this is something which I've dug up from your past media interactions. Now, in an earlier interview to The Guardian, you were quoted as follows: if somebody is looking for an audit opinion to be 100% surety that there are no issues that can come up, there's a cost associated with doing that kind of work. And you followed it up with a second comment, which goes as follows: if there is a perception that auditors are not doing enough, then the question ultimately turns out to be, who's going to pay for auditors to do more? I'm tempted to ask you, do you feel that because auditors in some cases are not getting top dollar, their oversight is justified?
Look, I think it's a really interesting question. I think you do have to bring into the conversation, what is the reasonable cost of an audit? What is the reasonable assurance that you're looking for? As I indicated earlier, there's a lot of really, great audits that get done. A lot of companies are doing the right thing. They have, fantastic integrity with regard to their financial reporting. So getting that cost, reward kind of a balance, into this discussion is certainly a big part of it. I can also tell you that with the way technology is moving, there will be bigger and more opportunities to provide more types of assurance through the use of technology and smart tools, smart processes that we can deploy that could potentially provide more assurance at a very cost-effective way. And that's certainly something at PwC we're very much focused on.
On that note, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned to ET Now. Welcome back to ET Now. We're in conversation with Dennis Nally, Chairman, PwC International. Let's talk about PwC India right now. Give us a sense of your emerging market strategy and also tell us where does PwC India fit in as far as that strategy is concerned?
Well, we're very focused on the developing markets within PwC. It's clearly the future. We all know the trends that are out there. The significant shift from the developed part of the world to the developing world. India plays a very big part of that. India for PwC is our fastest growing country and our most important countries within the network. As I said earlier, we see tremendous potential here, and with the new government in place and some of the stated reforms, the directions that they want to go in, we think there's even more cause to be optimistic here in terms of the future of this country. So India plays a very, very important role for PwC, in our network.
Now, every firm present in every market has a particular specialty. In India, where do you see the major growth drivers as far as PwC is concerned?
We see the growth in all lines of service, quite frankly.
Segments?
Absolutely. Assurance services, as companies continue to grow, they're going to need more and more assurance type services. Taxes is a big part of how a company manages its affairs. Obviously, our tax practice here in India is very responsive to that, as well as various types of advisory or consulting services, forensic services, big part of what we're doing as well. In addition to the normal types of consulting services you'd offer to our clients. So we see growth in all aspects of our lines of service, all parts of our business, and it's exciting. It's an exciting market and exciting to be here.
I was reading up a little bit about BOOZ & Co. and I believe that they're one of the dominant consultancy firms in the Middle East. So other than a step towards perhaps beefing up your Middle East presence, what are some of the other synergies or advantages that this deal gives PwC?
Well, it's just not the Middle East. That's certainly a big part of the geographic area that BOOZ & Company was very strong in. But they have large practices in Europe, large practices in the United States, other markets as well. But it was more about what the marketplace is really looking for. And as I mentioned earlier, clients are telling us. Not only to have a great strategy, but how do you implement that strategy? How do you really execute that strategy in all aspects of the business? PwC historically have been very good at the execute phase. By bringing BOOZ & Company, now strategy, and into PwC, we've increased our capabilities from a strategic standpoint so that we can carry out not only strategy but also the execution phase of what we're trying to advise our clients. And that's more the background as to why we were trying to move in this direction. We think this is the state of play for the consulting industry. You're seeing much more focus on how to get things done, how to execute, how to implement. That's what many of our clients are telling us, and that's why we're so excited about this particular transaction.
Now, audit revenues have been rather tepid in the developed markets. At least that was a scenario till late last year. Is that why PwC felt the need to invest heavily in consulting with the BOOZ & Co. deal?
No. Actually, our audit practice is very strong and it's robust. It'll grow 4 or 5% this year overall, and so a good growth in a very difficult or competitive environment, as you point out. But this is all about competency, skills, and we think with the world moving as quickly as it is, with the complexity that our clients are trying to deal with. Having the right kind of skills, the right kind of competencies that we can help our clients solve some of those big important problems is what this is all about. And so this isn't about shifting from our audit business into consulting. Sometimes the press likes to write about that.
There is your recent global CEO survey, which is a practice which PwC does every year. It has some startling statistics, and one of the statistics relates to the topmost concerns of CEOs around the world. Over-regulation. That's what propped up a staggering 72%. It even overshadowed fiscal deficit and other economic concerns. Do you think that trend continues?
Most definitely. I mean, clearly when the CEOs talked about this back in January, as you indicated, top concern that they're very much focused on. And not surprisingly is the way I'd put it. Coming out of the financial crisis, you're seeing governments, regulators all around the world, put in new rules and try to deal with sort of the aftermath, of that crisis. But the concern being that, as long as that pendulum for regulation is tilted all in one direction, obviously creating all kinds of costs, issues with regard to competitiveness. There isn't uniformity around the world as to how these regulations are being carried out. lack of clarity on some of these rules and regulations, which is a real concern, going back to what we talked about earlier, which is business wants clarity one way or another. So a lot of reasons that point to why that concern level is so high. And hopefully, we do get that pendulum back into a more balanced way in terms of really good, smart regulation that really is necessary, that can prevent the types of things that we saw with the financial crisis, but don't go over the top where it creates more problems than I think is envisioned, and certainly deals with what I see going on today, which is a lot of unintended consequences, which is business holding back investment, being very cautious about how they think about the future, which I think is certainly slowing down this recovery on a global basis anyways.
What are some of the major global business trends that you perhaps think can be incorporated in India and also implemented effectively in the Indian scenario, so to say?
There's a couple trends that I think are here today that are really, really important to pay attention to. First, what's happening with technology? Technology is moving so quickly, so rapidly. It's changing the way business conducts itself, whether it's big data, digitization, 24/7 with customers. That's a trend that I think we all have to grapple with and make sure that we're thinking about the opportunities, the challenges in a really smart way.
You were closely involved with PwC's technology practice as well earlier.
Early days,
yeah,
but,
early days,
but
yeah.
even then, I would say the pace of change has picked up since that time in a very dramatic way, and I think it's something that we collectively need to be focused on. I think the second big trend that's happening today is this whole issue of urbanization. When you think about the global population, about 50% of that population today is in cities today. In the next 15 to 20 years, that's projected to grow to about 60-65%. Creates all kinds of interesting challenges for infrastructure, for housing, for all, the list just goes on and on and on, changing the way the cities are managed, operated, et cetera. One of the big trends I think that we're going to be seeing front and center here for a number of years. And so, when I step back and I look at a couple of those big trends and I see how they're all converging today, certainly create a lot of opportunity, challenges, and it's really exciting to see how this is going to unfold here in the years to come.
Dennis, Nally, it's indeed been a pleasure talking to you. All the best for the Satyam verdict, and hope PwC goes from strength to strength in the coming years.
Thanks, Ashwin. Great to be with you.
Thanks for taking our time and speaking to ET now.
Good.